like to welcome to my podcast today. I have Christian from Toronto is Broken. Welcome, Christian.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you two today?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I think we were chatting earlier. So I'm kind of in the middle of my summer holidays because I work as a teacher, so I'm quite lucky in that respect. And yeah, just catching up on a lot of everything really,
Yeah.
music related. So obviously since announcing the signing to Fix, well, since signing with Fix, like back in March, has been pretty non-stop, and we've had a lot going on, which is great. So yeah, the benefit of being a teacher is I get all these blocks of time to catch up on things as well with my own label as well. So
that is awesome. That is awesome. I mean, that obviously being a teacher, I know that's hard work. I was a teacher for a small amount of time at college level for about 5 years, and yeah, I know what that job's kind of like. But obviously, kids are kids, even if
yeah.
and I was teaching DJing, so it was, you shouldn't
Mhm.
count on the kids on that front. But it's still teaching. So
Mhm.
part of the music.
Yeah.
So occasionally doing other things as well in that, but my main thing was the DJ technology thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool. And as we were saying before, I'm in isolation right now, so I'm
Yeah.
in my chamber, if you will. Solitude, and yeah, second time the app has got me, so fun times on that front.
Yeah. There's a silver lining to everything, I suppose, isn't there? So
there is. There is.
saying to the family, I'm not allowed to come out of the cave, like I'm isolating. So
You have to stay 2 meters.
government told me to stay in my cave.
Yeah,
So
at home, but yeah, no, it's always fun keeping the kids away from me as a joke, but it was all good. My tests were negative, so come 16th of August, going into isolation won't matter, I don't think, because I've had both jabs. So like once
yeah,
I get negative,
I've
go back in.
I've had one so far. Like I said, I waited until until it was the first thing I got done in the summer holidays because I couldn't really afford in the last few weeks of work in case I was off ill from the jab, because things were just so hectic tying up term. So it was the first thing. So that's why I was a bit late. But I went out on Friday night when all the clubs reopened.
Cool.
Did my test beforehand. Went to a small, like 70 capacity venue in Leicester, where I'm from, for a drum and bass night. It was sweaty. It was good. And tested a few days afterwards, and I'm fine. So it's all good. Everyone was sensible. So
that is good news. That is good news. I am back in the clubs on the 6th of August myself, DJing, and
oh, nice.
it's going to be the first time since lockdown. I did a bunch of live stream stuff, as most DJs kind of adapted to. But getting back into the club is what I've been waiting for, and they're announcing all the sort of like safety protocols, all that kind of stuff, passport, whatever, the lateral flow tests, all that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping my good people that come to the club will be safe and all that kind of good stuff. And
yeah, I think it's just being responsible, like making sure you take a because I've got a ton of lateral flow tests from work that I've got at home, but they're free anyway. I think it's just people just being conscious and responsible for themselves and taking tests before they go out, and making sure that they don't go out if it becomes that positive, or if they have to self-isolate or whatever. So
no, exactly. But I just finished my isolation just in time for getting out into the world.
Oh, nice.
Which is nice, because I was like looking at it, I panicked when I first got the ping. I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss like this thing. And no, thankfully it's a few days after my isolation ends, which is nice. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to getting back out there. I DJ mainly rock clubs and stuff. And we'll get onto like drum and bass shortly, but I was drum and bass DJ. I play drum and bass as well. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I go back to sort of like Metalhead's era.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of my vinyl is from that era. So I've got Dillinger, J Magic, all the sort of classic artists, Tech Itch, just like I'll get
like the Valve recordings and things, and
my Renegade Hardware.
One track that from back in those days that I still like to play every once in a while is Acid Track by Dillinger, if you know that one.
Yep.
That's a hefty one. So that's a good one.
He was one of the pioneers of like real heavy, like dark drum and bass from what I remember.
Yeah.
And there was a great album that came out, like compilation album.
Was it My Sound? The one where he sat on a Valve sound system on the front cover.
Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah,
it's a good one. And there was a good one that I think Groove Rider and Fabian Groove Rider released called the Prototype Years.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of it. I've not checked it out though. I don't think.
Yeah, it's just a compilation album of stuff at that time, and it had I think it had your sound on it actually. It's like John B, Dillinger, like just like the sort of like darker side of that the drum and bass at the time, which was coming out of jungle and going into that kind of two-step style. Which you know that's the sort of era I go to, like jungle as well to a certain degree. I've got a bunch of like old jungle stuff that I picked up at the time. I should really go through it and memorize what I've got again.
Well, seeing as you mentioned John B and how lots of people are having to do live streams, have you watched any of his live streams on Twitch, the John B ones? They are unbelievable. They're great.
Absolutely amazing. He was like, I've met him a couple of times. Just through like going out to clubs and stuff, but also at my day job as well, because he's local to that area that I'm in.
Oh, okay.
And he's come in there for when he's had issues with his Macs and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's just watching his live streams, watching how some DJs have kind of done stuff where it's just them standing in front of, you know, a camera, which is kind of what I've done. He's gone next level with the graphics. It's just like kind of he's made it a proper party looking thing, like entertaining.
Yeah, it's I think that I've spoken to. I've known John for a while as well, and he's supported my tunes for a while, and we've chatted and stuff. And he's just really kind of. He said before, like when he wants to do something, he just dives head first straight in and embraces it. So he learned everything to do with After Effects and all the animation and video editing, and then the streaming stuff. He's gone full in. Like another example is just like on his Instagram, on his Instagram story highlights that you can store. I remember sitting there watching, and there's ones that are like just hours long of him when he renovated his loft, a couple of years ago, and he just learnt it all himself, like just from watching YouTube videos. It's mental just watching all of these. And now obviously the loft space he's got is where his studio that he does all the live streams from. If people don't know that are listening to this, just if you look for John B Beta on Twitch and just watch, and you just be blown away.
Totally do that. Everyone do it. It is worth it.
It's mental.
It's kind of what I aspire to want to do, but then we kind of opened up again. And I'm like, well, do I need to do that now? But you know, like watching it, and it's like, well, he's done it, so it's just kind of like.
I wonder if he translate it some way into like when he actually goes back to playing out.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. He would need, you know,
you could just take those video layers. You could just take those video layers and give it to the lighting guys, I suppose, and then they just randomize it. He's playing. There's big crabs and Theresa May dancing on screen behind him.
Yeah, exactly that. Old Bernie sat there and he was like coating it. Yeah. No, that would be amazing. I've got to get out and like watch some shows again. I want to get back in.
If he doesn't win like best live stream at this year's Drum Bass Arena Awards, then I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, no, exactly. That would be it'd be fun to see who did that. But we'll go against that, I should say. But it's one of the things I want to get back out doing, because I used to, like say, back in the day, I was at the Leisure Lounge in London quite often, which was a kind of it was the Metalheads night they had there. It was kind of like a semi-legendary night. So like Goldie, Chemistry, Storm, Photech, stuff like that. And bringing it up to you today, I can hear a lot of those influences in there from your new album.
Okay.
So it's a kind of loose, kind of transition here to talking about your music. But you have got an album out on Fixt Noir.
Yes. Yes.
Which is the new division, electronic dance music division of Fixt. They've recently announced their evolution. I've been a long-term fan of Fixt and Clayton, and a lot of their previous artists have been on this show. A lot of their current artists are on this show. So I've had Sidney Akira on here 3 times. I've had Boysians. I've had Clayton himself. I had Blue Starly.
You mentioned Zardonic, who's done a lot of stuff with Fixt in the past as well.
And yeah, so I have a long relationship with the guys at Fixt. We used to have a sponsorship thing going as well, where I'd have a discount code for people and things like that. So we worked a lot. I used to live in the States, and we just built up a relationship there. And then obviously with this evolution thing, I wanted to sort of like get back in and get their artists back on. I had Seething Akira on recently. This was before they announced, I'm going to say re-signing with Fixt, but signing with Fixt.
Okay.
Because it was the second time round for them, but the first time fell apart for some reason.
I didn't realize they'd signed more than once.
Yeah, it was because anyway, it's a long story, but they've come back round and Fixt to pick them up again, which is awesome. And just sort of having that relationship with them and getting some of their artists that I haven't had on the show. So like yourself, new artists with specifically with their Fixt Noir division, if you will. So they're broken into three now. For those that don't know, you've got Fixt Neon, Fixt Radium, and Fixt Noir. So Neon,
and I think Radium is the classic kind of metal and electronic standard Fixt that people kind of know it for, don't they? So
so they've rebranded the main, because it used to just be Fixt and Fixt Neon. Fixt is now Fixt Radium, so it's still got Cell Dweller, Circle of Dust, Voicians, Richie Nix, I Will Never Be the Same. This is just off the top. That's quite good. Seething Akira. So they had like the Chemists. And
keep going. I've got the list next to me. I'm ticking off as we go.
Because I had the Chemists on the show as well. Back before they actually signed for that album with them as well. So I seem to catch the
David, because they released album number 3 with Fixt, didn't they? Because before they were signed to Ninja Tune, and the first ever drum and bass track I ever heard was the Spore remix of Stompbox by the Chemists.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a life-changing moment for me when I stumbled across that on MySpace and heard the drop and the big siren going off and then the basses and the breakdown. I was like, what's going on? This is amazing. I've never heard anything like it. So
that's a great guess, because I love the Chemists. Stompbox was my entry with them as well. Really came to the front with Lost Weekend.
That whole album, Join the Queue, is amazing. The second album was really good as well, and they got the Enter Shikari collaboration on there, who are my all-time favorite band, Enter Shikari. So
excellent. Nice. And then Warrior Sound, which was the one they released on Fixt, they came out with, and that album I played to death. Played it in the clubs, played it in all the stuff that I do. Along with other Fixt artists as well. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot on there. It could be the thing when I DJ, it's just because it'd be Fixt. Just sort of like they've now announced that kind of like evolution, as they put it in their announcement that they had a couple of weeks ago. You were one of the new additions.
Yes.
To the label, I announced with a few others as well, or to the overall label. And how did that relationship, first and foremost, come about? Because obviously before you've had, we'll go into your origin story shortly, but you've had before this, on different labels. But how did the relationship with Fixt come about?
They announced a slew of artists that are signed to Fixt, so got releases upcoming on Fixt, but I'm the only exclusive signing to Fixt Noir. So the other artists, they're just non-exclusive. I think they're just kind of one-off releases or whatever. But so I released. So Clare originally came out on my label, Yana Music, in January.
Okay. Yep.
And then from about this time and throughout the 2020, we released the singles from that. And it was through, so I released my album, and through a mutual friend, I got recommended to Fixt by Muzz. He used to go under the alias Muzzy. He signed to Monster Cat, and he recommended me to Fixt because they've got like mutual friends, and also my friend Dave, who's the vocalist Balance, is also friends with Landon, who does A&R at Fixt Noir. So they heard Paragons. And they really liked what they heard, so they contacted me and my manager. And they asked, "Oh, have you got any? We're setting up Fixt Noir. Have you got any like tracks you could contribute or whatever?" I said, well, not really at the minute because I've just released an album, so I haven't really got anything at the minute. And they were like, but I was like, but have you heard the rest of, like, yeah, we really like what we hear in Paragons. I was like, have you heard the rest of the album? And they were like, no, not yet. So they went off, and we had another meeting about a week later, and they changed their tactic completely, and they were like, yeah, we want to sign that album off you and sign you exclusively after listening to it. So yeah, that's kind of how it went about. This happened kind of back in, there's a bit of back and forth, like contracts and lawyers, like there usually is, and stuff like that, and publishers. And I think signed on the dotted line around March time. And yeah, they would re-release the album. And we also had been sitting on the Sardonic remix of Paragons anyway, which originally was going to come out on my label, Yana Music. But we thought maybe Fixt could probably just do a better job of it, full stop, anyway, if they released it. So yeah, that was the first kind of re-releasing Clare, but also sticking the Sardonic remix onto the back of that as well. And yeah, that's essentially how it all came about through a mutual friend. And then, yeah, like I said, they originally wanted just 1 or 2 tracks, see if it could contribute anything. Yep. And they ended up changing their tactic completely after listening to Clare and bought the album rights off me. So
awesome. It's an amazing album. I love it.
Thank you.
I've had it on constantly, to be fair, on rotation with it. But it's
that's why the big spike on Spotify happened. That's
maybe. It baffles me sometimes because I used to be so ingrained in certain scenes, and I still seem to miss things. So I totally missed like your evolution from your previous albums and stuff like that, and you were on a lot of like compilations and stuff, which I think I do have. Bizarre, because I'm like, normally I'd look on my iTunes list and I'd see what I've got, but I stopped copying stuff a long time ago because I'm using the streaming places, and it's sort of like, I've got no sort of reference points on that. My CDs are in a box somewhere. I rarely take them out unless I'm looking for something. But could we just go back and just sort of get some of your origin story? Because like I said, you've already released like a couple of albums prior to this. The first one that I can see was 2015. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, Section 9.
Section 9. And then 2018, you had You Are. Is it You Are Alone or You Are Not Alone? Because I know you put the not.
You Are Not Alone, but the not's in brackets.
That's it. Yeah.
So
just making sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. If we can get some of your origin story, I know we've already touched on a couple of like the moment you kind of like heard drum and bass with the Chemists and the Stuntbox remix and stuff. And what is your sort of like origin story within music and things like that?
Yeah, so just in music in general, it's always been from that rock and metal side of things anyway. I think my first moment when I kind of realized I want music to be something more than just something to listen to in my life is I was like about 12 years old or something, and my friend at school just wouldn't shut up about Green Day's American Idiot album.
Okay, yeah.
So I was like, come on then, let me borrow it and I'll see what all the fuss is about. And yeah, I think the copy was slightly damaged by overuse by the time I returned it back to him, because that was in loop. And then I discovered like My Chemical Romance with their Three Cheers album. So yeah, it was at that point where I realized I wanted to like kind of make music. I wanted to be in a band. And like I tried being in some bands, and it wasn't like, it was fine because I could play guitar, but like all they wanted to do was covers of Sweet Child of Mine and Don't Look Back in Anger and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm killing myself here. This is horrible. So like my musical taste just didn't really align with other people that were like playing guitars and stuff like that. And it wasn't until I picked up Enter Shikari's first album, Take to the Skies, on a whim from a Morrison's one day, because I kept on seeing like Kerrang and magazines talking about them. So I was like, right, I'll give it a go. And then I just fell in love with Enter Shikari, and they kind of also, I discovered electronic music through them as well, because my perception of electronic music back then was stuff like Cascada and Scooter and stuff like that, and just bleepy noises and high-pitched vocals. Was like, it's not really for me. So but yeah, it started but that's when I discovered electronic music. And I used to kind of write guitar music and stuff like that on a piece of software called Guitar Pro, with the intention of like fantasizing. Yeah, one day I'll get a band together and we'll play these, and we'll get someone to sing on it. I actually found those old, because I used to submit those demos to ultimateguitar.com, those the guitar profiles under like fake band aliases, and I rediscovered them like a few months ago. And there's actually a YouTube video of me and my housemate like reacting to them. And these are from like when I was like 14 or something like that. So like 15 years ago or something like that. And they're awful. They're absolutely awful. Like, so if you go onto my Time Was Broken YouTube channel, there'll be a video there, and from there it's just our faces, just our faces pulling faces and of disgust. But it's then I discovered that the lead singer for Shikari, Ra Reynolds, he also had like a side. He used to like have an electronic music side project as well, and I think he did various different aliases. One of them being Route.
Yeah.
And at that point, then I realized, hang on, I don't actually need to be in a band to make music. So I was like, well, how do I go about making these sounds? So I got my hands on a copy of FL Studio. And then later switched to Ableton like a year later, and just kind of that's where it all started, I suppose. Downloading FL Studio and going through all the demo projects that came with it, and kind of reverse engineering and remixing them in the project and stuff like that. The stuff like, obviously YouTube wasn't really a thing back then, but I don't even think like Google Video was a thing back then, which was like the precursor to YouTube. And so I just kind of had to learn from literally trial and error and reverse engineering what the software provided with the demos and stuff like that. And I kind of used to make what could kind of be described as like IDM music, so like a mix of like breakcore and glitch and like ambient music and stuff like that at silly tempos at like 210 BPM and stuff like that. And that's, and then like then this is kind of where we loop back around to like me discovering drum and bass. It was like, well, I've heard of IDM music, but like I don't really know of many artists. So I Googled, I went onto MySpace and searched, because you could search by genre, search IDM. One of the top people that came up was Spore, because he had it tagged, and then I clicked on it. I think he just released his remix of Stompbox at this point, so that was the top track on his thing. And from that point, as you do, I kind of stopped listening to like rock and metal, and as anyone does when they first discover drum and bass, that's all they live and breathe for God knows how many years. So so I just fell into the rabbit hole of drum and bass and other styles of bass music and stuff like that. So from there,
that is awesome. That is quite the journey on there as well. It's and I love the way it came from like that rock and metal side, and then to Shikari were your gateway to the sort of like drum and bass and jungle kind of electronic things. And no, I mean Shikari, again, previous guest on the show.
Oh really? Cool.
Had when they released their album last year, the
Nothing Is True.
That's it. Nothing's
the
true.
one. They just released a documentary series on their YouTube. They're about 2 episodes in, which are quite really well made. So
and I've known them for a while, back in when we go back now, going back years ago. But they supported my band in London, their first London show, I think it was, upstairs at the garage, and they were the main
oh wow, that would have been a real long time ago.
We're talking like demo era, before Take to the Skies. I do have that CD somewhere amongst my stuff, and I know on Discogs it goes for quite a lot, so but no, I've known those guys for ages, and I've always loved that like electronic side of things, mixing with rock and metal, sort of going back to like some Ministry, Fear Factory, the sort of more industrial side of things. A band called Pitch Shifter, they did it really well back 20 plus years ago, and they were like the precursor to a lot of those bands, like Enter Shikari and things like that. They were the influence for them and things. And yeah, just like that whole drum and bass scene mixing with the rock and metal is I love it. That's my like total thing. But yeah, I mean, you're like the journey you've had like on that front. It is just I just love it come from that, because I went from like kind of like rock, and then into electronic, and then kind of back again.
It's the same happened with me. You're kind of gone full circle. Now.
And now I'm mixing the two. It's like I've got like a music show where I mix rock and dance music. Like I've got a radio show that I can do that on. I've got live stuff I can do that with as well. If the people on this particular rock night, there are some rock nights where I can't do it because they just want the heavy stuff. All the classic stuff, that kind of like, Sweet Child of Mine.
Well, the first kind of drum and bass I listened to was The Chemists and Pendulum.
Yeah.
Which were obviously, they were kind of rock bands as well as drum and bass acts as well. So it's kind of, that's always kind of been like a love of mine. But yeah, like so that was probably like 2009 or something like that when I kind of discovered drum and bass. 2008, 2009. My first release was on my first kind of release on a label commercially was on Subslayers, and I've done all sorts. So that first release was like a future 140 future jungle stuff. And that's kind of where I started, in that breakbeat scene with the 140, like future jungle, jungle tech kind of thing. And yeah, but my heart's always kind of been in drum and bass, and there would always be a drum and bass track or two on those EPs that I released. And then we kind of, as time went along, it just kind of, because I also did like a bit of dubstep, did a bit of garage as well, future garage. So it used to be very kind of multi-genre. But then up until the point of when I released my first album, Section 9, which was a real mix of like drum and bass, breakbeat. There's even some kind of like glitch hop tunes on there and some garage stuff. And yeah, I was really happy with how that turned out. But I later realized that because every track was in a different key and a different tempo, it was an absolute nightmare to feature those tracks in my sets because they were just so all over the place. So, and then not long after that, I released my first track on Viper, which then later led on to me signing exclusive with them for a few years. And it was by that point, it was kind of predominantly just drum and bass that I was releasing. And around that time, I was kind of heavily inspired by a lot of like ambient music and more like experimental kind of techno-y kind of stuff. People like John Hopkins or Max Cooper, those kind of guys that I was really big into, and try to incorporate that with my drum and bass sound. And my love of drum and bass has always been that kind of standard, that in the middle, big room kind of dance floor sound. So like Subfocus and Metric and Dimension, stuff like that. And yeah, I'd always kind of potted along. After leaving Viper, I set up my own label, Yana Music, because I had a backlog of tunes that were originally going to come out on Viper, but then we decided to part ways after the album. So I used it as a vessel to kind of release those. But I just felt like I was kind of, looking back now, I was just kind of just a generic drum and bass producer. There wasn't really anything like a unique selling point apart from having a silly name, I suppose. So like, yeah, just like another Subfocus Dimension copycat or something like that is kind of just what I was kind of like. And then like along this time, I kind of rediscovered metal. Like I stumbled across, I can't remember how I got back into metal, but I remember it being Architects' Lost Together, Lost Forever album, the one with Naysayer and Gravedigger on. That I discovered. That's also the first time I'd heard like properly low tuned guitars. I was like learning it. I was like, I want to learn like the guitar tab for Naysayer or whatever. And I looked at the tuning and I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, could the strings even go down that far? Yeah. And because it was like a kind of like a variation on like drop G sharp or something for that tune. And then I discovered North Lane. In particular, a track called Citizen off their Mesmer album, which was kind of like, it was in drop F and it was written in F minor, and it's around, and F minor is kind of like a perfect key to write drum and bass in, or just bass music in general, because that low F is kind of the sweet spot on like a club sound system. And that's why so many tunes are written in that key, for example.
Yeah.
And it was also around the drum and bass tempo. And I was like the cogs in my head started whirring. And I was like, maybe there is something in maybe kind of mixing this style of like metal, the like heavier, gentler kind of style, with the low tuned with drum and bass. And I kind of milled on it for a while. And it wasn't until I actually had a house flooding about coming up to 2 years ago. Our house got flooded, and we had to move. Loads of stuff got destroyed. Thankfully, none of our real valuables got destroyed. But with the like home insurance payout, I was able to invest in a 7-string, so I could play those kind of low tunings. And I thought, well, from that point onwards, that's when I started to kind of experiment with merging the whole metal and drum and bass side of things. And the first one I wrote was Paragons, which is probably the hardest track to write, because it was working out how to make them work in the first place together. And it just kind of moved on from there. And I've said in like other interviews, like I've been releasing as Toronto Was Broken. So my first EP, my Move It EP, that came out on Subslayers, which had my track Spirit Song on, that did really well. It turns 10 years old in January, and like I've said, like it's taken me 10 years of producing, but I feel like I finally worked out what my sound is, and what my niche is, as opposed to just being another dance floor drum and bass DJ, for example. So and some of the stuff I'm working on at the minute, like post Clare, some of the remixes I've done, and some of the original things I'm working on as well. I'm really pushing how far I can merge that metal and drum and bass together. So I've kind of like tested the waters with Clare, worked out a formula, so to speak, but also not wanting to restrict myself to this formula. But like, okay, right, I've tested the waters now. Now this is how I'm going to push it as far as possible. And
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love that, because like I said, that amalgamation of specifically drum and bass and metal is that's my like spirit child, if you will, on that front. It's something that I've always loved to do. I've always loved to remix stuff like on the fly, or just in general. I wouldn't put myself out there as a producer of any kind. I do stuff that is more of a hobby level when it comes to remixing and stuff. I've been a musician. I've done that touring. I've done that side of things. I now do this. I'm more on the journalistic side of things, which is
you kind of like just doing it for you, so to speak. So it's how music started for me. It was obviously just a hobby, but now it's kind of a bit more. So it's I've got other hobbies as well that are kind of just for me. And it's nice that those hobbies will always just say just for me as well. Like they got no way of turning into money making ventures.
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. No, we've all got those. But yeah, no, it's one of those things, because I've always aspired to be something that does cross genres. Especially, I love just like making people dance. That's my thing as a DJ. Obviously, it's like it's making people dance, and you can probably see if I turn behind me, I got some turntables behind me somewhere. There you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there we are.
There we go. There's two of them. There's another one there as well. But yeah, I've always sort of like aspired to. I've scratch DJing for the longest time. That's when I was in a band, I was a scratch DJ, so I was part of that like new metal movement where hip hop and metal crossed over. And I was
so like new metal was like a big influence, just those groovy kind of riffs, and obviously Linkin Park were like a big influence on me. One of my biggest regrets is never going to go see them live, because I was unfortunately one of those people that were like, from like album 4 onwards, were like, they're not the same anymore, blah, 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 blah. And then I kind of stopped following them. But I fell back into that. I don't know, I went through like a really depressed stage during the first lockdown of just watching lots of Linkin Park stuff, and like, for example, the Hollywood Bowl memorial show they did, and catching up on all the stuff that I'd missed, the albums. There's all amazingly produced stuff, and like listening to Mike Shinoda's post-traumatic album, and just making myself sad that Linkin Park's no longer a thing. And then I wrote Gunfingers straight afterwards, because that was the kind of the new metal-y track on the album.
I was going to say
the one that's inspired by Points of Authority.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Yeah, I've got that. I got that one with was it with Sabotage as well?
Sabotage, yes. And we have just he came to mind this weekend, just gone at the time of recording this, and yeah, we've done our follow up for that.
Nice.
And we thought we set the bar too high maybe with Gunfingers because it just came together so easily.
Yeah.
Gunfingers, it was just a real easy vibe. Like it was like either the first or second take that he sent over to me, because obviously we did Destroy Lockdown and he'd nailed it. But yeah, this time around I've kind of this like we're full on maxed out with this one, and really excited to show this one whenever it may be done and put out. So
excellent. I look forward to that. Yeah, I was gonna say it's one of the ones I've got written down along with Paragons, which we already talked about as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the album Clare. If anyone's listening, go listen to it now. You can pause this. Go listen to it now. It's great. It's like it does. It feels that kind of like it's like all the stuff you talked about. You know, like sort of being that kind of like big room drum and bass.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like the first half of so I kind of did this unintentionally, but like the first half of the album up until the interlude track is kind of my more classic kind of dance floor, big room kind of sound.
Yeah.
And then once the interlude hits and it goes into Gunfingers and then Free Fall and Cut Into You is the more kind of guitar orientated kind of centered kind of stuff. And that's kind of all the stuff going forward. So I'm signed on to do my next album with Fixt, and I'm aiming for that new album to be kind of 100% that kind of Paragons, Gunfingers kind of sound. And I also, going into it, I wanted it to equally appeal to metal and drum and bass fans.
Yep.
I didn't. So obviously, mixing rock and rock and drum and bass is nothing new. Like we said, Pendulum and the Chemists have done it, but to me, it's kind of just sounded like drum and bass with guitars on it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's some acts as well, recent like Muzz and Metric, that are kind of doing a similar thing. But I feel like the guitars may be more of like a supporting element, whilst this was like tracks in particular, like Paragons, Gunfingers to Freefall. I want it to be 50-50, like metal and drum and bass. Like nobody's done any metal breakdowns and drum and bass yet. Nice. So that's why I had to put them into mine.
Yeah.
So
do that. Keep doing
that. Yeah. Open up the pit, a little circle of deaths, and going in there.
How do you? I mean, looking at obviously, I take it you go out, you DJ clubs like and drum and bass stuff like that. When we're allowed to. But how are you looking to bring your music to sort of like the live feel, like the live fitting? Who do you have a couple of musicians you're going to work with, or is it going to be a solo thing, or are you just going to have like yourself?
So we've thought about, me and my manager talked about this briefly before, because obviously the stuff on Clare kind of can translate quite naturally to live.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's electronic music, you'll be very backing track heavy and stuff like that. But I think it would be a live band situation, not just me with a controller kind of thing and standing there with a guitar and controller, because I think that might look just a bit cheesy. But like, it would be a live band thing. We thought about like there's definitely people that we know that we could get session wise, to fill in the slots and stuff like that. So it's something we'd like to think about, but we need to kind of just get back into the clubs first. So me and Sabotage are going to kind of do as many club shows as we can and stuff. Maybe towards the next album, finishing the next album, that would maybe make more sense as to if we were to do a live show, when to put that together.
Yeah.
And show that when it comes around to finishing off album number 4. So, but definitely doing it as a live band is a goal at the end. It's just a big logistical nightmare, essentially, isn't it? And there's lots of technology involved, and a lot of pre-production and stuff. So, but to be fair, metal bands these days, they have tons of pre-production and production with their live shows as well nowadays, don't they? So
they do indeed.
Yeah, it's no longer just plug the amps in and away you go. So
it really isn't. There's obviously bands that still do that, but there is a lot of care taken in the pre-production of their live performances, because like as a sort of like, I always found when playing live, there were some places where, or some night, you just didn't sound as you should if that makes sense. And we started like, because I
Yeah.
was DJ in the band, I started dabbling in the electronic side of things, so a lot more sampling and a lot more
Mm-hmm.
so we would beef up the sound with like, I'd be playing a synth, or I'd be playing, like triggering samples or triggering
You'd
breaks.
have sequences going and stuff, and
Yeah. So
yeah.
we'd have like, so it would give like, I mean, I know there's big bands out there that have like, they play with backing tracks. There's only 3 of them on stage. They don't sound that big. I'm using Muse as an example here. They've always had that. Like,
Yeah. Well, and Shikari have got a massive amount of pre-production into all their shows as well.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got, they travel as either sound system or as themselves as well, and they know what is needed to give their music that the feel they need to on a live scale. And I've seen them on many different stages, and they've sounded good on all of them.
Yeah.
It's the same with Muse. I've seen them on tiny stages. I've seen them headline festivals, and they sound amazing because they do have that. They're conscious of what they can do themselves and what they need help with. Like, in as much as like, is a backing track where it's just like a layer of, synth or whatever, where they can't, play on their own instruments. And it's kind of a way of doing it without having to bring others into the band as well, because obviously as a band you have a kind of like, unless you're bringing in session musicians, then they know the score. But if you're a band that you've been formed with for years, you know how everyone thinks, how.
Well, there's just simple things such as like when you record guitars, for example, you double track them to get them to sound nice and wide and big, and you can't just duplicate the one recording over, because it doesn't work like that. There need to be 2 separate things. So essentially, to do that live, you need 2 guitarists. But if there's only one guitarist, well, you need a backing track of a second guitar going, don't you, to fill that out essentially? Because you can try widening plugins and stuff like that. It just doesn't sound natural.
No,
doesn't sound the same.
Tried it with like speakers across the stages and stuff as well, and it's just it's just a wall of sound at that point.
Yeah. Ultimately, it needs to be 2 different takes that are playing to get that sound. So just little things like that. Just you need the backing of the guitar going the whole time, even though you're on stage playing guitar. So
no, definitely, and it's something obviously you need to do that. And like I say, a lot of bands these days, even new bands.
So thankfully, I met my manager at Audio Festival, which was actually 3 years ago today, because it came up on my Facebook memories. And I was playing the set before Fred V and Graphics, and this is when they did their live band show. And my manager John was their tour manager and like production manager for their show back then. So he's got all the know-how and experience of how he turned their stuff into a live band thing for them. So that's why we've talked about it before. Also, he put together like the live shows for Current Sound as well, if you've heard of them. So yeah, thankfully I'm quite lucky that I've got someone whose background is in live sound and live production as my manager. So
that's good to have that knowledge, because it is a tricky minefield, because you don't want to end up being too reliant on something, and then
and if something goes wrong, and
so you just need to have, obviously it's having the barriers of protection, if you will. But that's good to have that knowledge there, and having someone that has done that. That's going to be helpful for you on that front.
I know some people have like kind of, so I think it's Fox Stevenson, where he got a load of his tracks and he basically stripped them back into like a punk rock kind of like one guitarist, one bassist, one drummer kind of thing. But that involves essentially rewriting the tracks, and they're not the same tracks, whilst I want people to hear these tracks. And also, like, one of the challenges that I came across when trying to merge the 2 sets, metal and drum and bass, is so metal music, when you listen to a recording, isn't mixed down so it works in a club. Because in a live venue, because the band's going to replay it live, there's going to be a totally different mix for the live thing that would translate to the live setting but wouldn't necessarily translate to a recording. Whilst with drum and bass, the version that you hear live is the final mix, the mastered version that you hear on the release. So I also had to like work out as well as learning how to mix down metal in the first place from scratch. I had to also learn it in a way where I had to beef it up to stand on par with the drum and bass sections as well. So like it felt like I had to learn how to produce again, which was good, because I think maybe I was getting into a bit of a rut. getting a bit stagnant.
Yeah.
But now it's a totally different way of working for me, which is great.
No, it's tricky because I remember, like going back to me again with the experiences there. Like when we came to recording, we were recording ourselves. We didn't have producers come in, but like getting a balance, like you're right, getting a balance between that, like the electronic element, and like all the digital and the analog element, like getting the levels right, making the production work for both sides of things, because there was that point of like you could have like you got your main track going, and then suddenly I'll hit a break beat and it's just like bang,
and it's really bright in comparison and stuff. So that's one thing. So I recently did a masterclass series for some guys called Sound Teams, which I'm not sure it will be out by the time this goes live. It goes live at some point in August, and people can subscribe to it and stuff like that and watch it. And I talked about how I merged it, and I actually kind of did a little bit of a PowerPoint lecture and the challenges and stuff like that. That's my teaching background coming through, because I love a PowerPoint. And but yeah, so what was I going to say? Yeah, so for example, like distorted, like a metal mix is actually quite, even though, so the reason the two styles I think maybe appeal to me is because fundamentally at the core of it, they're both styles of music that are based more on rhythm and groove than anything else, and they follow this whole big wall of sound kind of idea. So they sound big, and it's more about rhythm. Like I said, drum and bass. Way to describe it, drum and bass, I describe it as a physical force, because you can actually feel it. Like you go into a club, you feel the sub hitting you. It actually physically moves you. It just feels like energy. And metal is the same in that regard as well. And yeah, obviously there's tons of really good technical melodic kind of stuff on both sides of the thing, but at their core, they're both about just hitting hard, going fast, having that groove and energy and rhythm. But if you actually put the two styles of music next to each other, frequency wise, there isn't actually like the lowest lows in metal, and the highest highs aren't actually there either. It's quite a narrow band frequency wise. Whereas drum and bass, it's the full spectrum. So you got the lowest lows because you got a massive sub, and you got the really nice tops. So it's trying to compensate those. Another thing, for example, like the guitars. So guitars, even though they're distorted, if you so like 90% of, I think like 90% of the guitar sound is the cabinet it's coming out of. That is the guitar sound, the cabinet. However, it like really narrows the sound of it. So if you put it in like a drum and bass track with the synths going, it sounds incredibly dull and doesn't sound bright at all. Whilst if you took the cab off, it becomes bright enough, but it sounds ear-splittingly awful and horrible if there's no cabinet light coming out of. So I had to work out a way of keeping that guitar tone whilst bringing back the highs. So I had to do some like weird tricky by like layering stuff together and things like that to bring the brightness back, but also keep that core tone of the guitar. So yeah, lots of challenges. Like there was a lot more to even consider before even, and to think about and discuss before even putting pen to paper, so to speak.
Yeah.
So other things as well was like something I wasn't really expecting was, so the guitars on my album, I'm not an amazing guitarist. I could play some fairly simple riffs and stuff like that, but it's all performed live by myself and recorded in. They're not programmed guitars. I could have got programmed guitars, but then the amount of work to make them sound good, and also I program stuff that's just unrealistic or way beyond my ability level. But yeah, I had to, even like the most basic riffs. So like, for example, the most simplest riff is probably like the intro riff to Gunfingers. I still had to practice it for like a good day before I could actually record it, just to make sure it's get it bang on and spot on. So the writing process is totally different, because I'll often start off with like a guitar part or something, and then I need to practice it for a while and write it, and then program it, then record it in. Whilst with other stuff, with drum and bass generally, you're not having to practice you just open up a piano roll and slap the notes in, and then quantize it later or whatever. Whilst this, I actually had to, even though I still had to do a fair bit of editing and cleaning up the DIs and getting them bang onto the grid and stuff like that, I still needed to practice what I wrote before I recorded it, which is something that I think people that just make drum and bass just don't really expect necessarily. So
yeah, no, definitely. If you're bringing that, it's kind of like if you call it an organic instrument into it,
yeah,
because it's a physical aspect and it has its own sound, its own life, if you will. Smack a guitar and it makes a sound. Whereas if you hit a piece of digital gear, you might break it, but that'll be about it.
yeah.
It's got, and you've got to get that right. And playing it,
And every time you hit a note, even if it's the same note on a guitar, you can never replicate the exact same thing that you've done twice. It's impossible.
Yeah.
On an acoustic instrument.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, man, I've got a couple of questions left for you, man. I can let you go the rest of your day. But yeah, what I want to get is, as it's the first time you've been on the show, I want to get your three top albums. We've already kind of covered some of them, I think, but your three top albums that are real, like, pivotal for you. I know we've discussed some of them, but if you want to name three of them, that'll be awesome.
Okay, so not necessarily favorite albums, but pivotal albums.
Yeah,
we're going to say.
Exactly.
Okay, so probably be then American Idiot by Green Day.
Yeah,
that was the first album that fell in love with music. Then I think the Acts of Madmen album that came out in 2019 on Viper Recordings. That was a compilation album. That was the first ever drum and bass album I brought.
Okay.
And then third most pivotal album then probably would be Mesmer by North Lane.
Okay.
Oh no, hang on. Oh, can I have four?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I'll put Take to the Skies and Shikari in there as well.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, falling in love with music is American Idiot by Green Day. Yeah. Then discovering electronic music, Take to the Skies, Ben Shikari. Then Acts of a Madman by Viper Recordings, so the first drum and bass album I learned, brought. And then Mesmer by North Lane is when I kind of fell back in love with metal after listening to that album.
Nice.
There we go.
Great, that's cool. They're all fantastic albums. I'll have to check out the Acts of Madman.
Yeah.
But American Idiot.
It's from like 2009, 2008, something like that. So
I'll dig it out. I'll see if I can find it out anywhere. Yeah, Mesmer, North Lane. Yep, know them, and Shikari. Yeah, no, fantastic choices there. So what are your hobbies away from all this? Because you did mention earlier you got some hobbies.
So I have clocked on the Necromunda box behind you.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm a big tabletop gamer. So I play 40k, Age of Sigmar. I've got some Necromunda as well, a bit of Warcry. Really big into like the Grimdark, Inquisitor 28 kind of kit bashing kind of stuff. If you're familiar with that, some other games as well. Played outside of Games Workshop games. I played a lot of Kings of War in the past. A little bit of Infinity, Malifaux. But yeah, I'm all right. I'd like to say I'm half decent at painting, but I'm god awful at playing. But yeah, okay. But I've not actually had. Pardon?
No, I was going to say I can clock behind you the cabinet you've got with your
yes
in them, so you're showing them off. I can see
well, it's in the that's a reflection.
Yes.
So because that's a mirror.
Yes. So to the right of you, if I could, that would have been weird. But
yeah, I do have an Instagram, which is just Christian Hoffman painting for all those kind of things.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, if they're so yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, I've not, to be honest, with how much has been going on with signing to Fixt and also finishing up the end of term at work. I've not actually done any hobby since like Easter time, I think. So I've kind of committed to myself to 1 week during my summer holidays before I go back. I've got about 3-4 weeks left to spare a week aside to not do any music stuff and just crack on with a load of painting. Because I have got boxes and boxes of stuff that are, I've got a whole like Flesh Eater Quartz army up there for Age of Sigmar, just in the boxes still that yet to be assembled. Just getting around to it.
Behind my camera, just here, I've got like I'm very much into my Necromunda, but I've got like 4 boxes at the moment of all the new.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've painted actually I've done some commission work just for a friend. Painted up the Van Sars They were really good. But I picked yellow as their main color. And after that, I was like, I'm never painting yellow again. So, because yellow is just one of those pain in the arse colors.
They are.
I've got the lax, which I did in like a black. So that was nice and easy.
Yeah.
I've got some real nice kind of grimdark looking. So my main ones are corpse grinders.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Cool.
Real nice. Quite happy with. I don't know how well you can see.
Shower. This is good.
Don't know how well it's coming out. If you look on Instagram, they'll come out a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been experimenting a lot with, like, in the past year or so, using oil paints.
Okay.
Doing a lot of weathering techniques and stuff like that. I've also got because you can. I'll tell you what, the books that they release for Necromunda, the rule books are some of the nicest they produce.
Yeah.
Goes with the gold leaving and stuff like that, and they're just really well made. I've got like the beginnings of like a kit bashed Slanesh Chaos Cultist team.
Okay.
I used some of the Blackstone Fortress cultists to base those off, and I've got a Slanesh Age of Sigmar army, so I had tons of spare bits left over from that I just kit bashed into them. So yeah, I do quite like Necromunda. I think I do prefer the smaller skirmish things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's where I'm at. I mean, the 40k side of things, the bigger side, I've never been able to really get into Necromunda.
I've got
first time round.
I've got Necrons when they re-released it. When they released 9th edition last year, I got the Indomitus box, and I have got a fairly hefty, I think probably just over 2,000 points now of Necrons. I've got about 600 points left to paint, but that consists of some of the big guys that I've got left to paint, including the Silent King. I've got him all prepped and primed and in sub-assemblies. But I went for a relatively quick scheme of those, which is just basically white, pick out the brass metals, tons of oil washes and loads of pigments and some of the contrast paints for base coating. And yeah, they're just and some like Martian style bases with like pigments, and they're all just covered in like pigments, like they've all just come out of the ground and on Mars or something. So, but yeah, have a look on the Instagram. I don't really talk about it too much with I keep that stuff separate because again, it's nice to have a hobby that's just for me. And no way to monetize it. So
that's the thing with me. It's the same. Like away from everything, this is quite a secluded like hobby, if you will. Like when you're painting and putting these things together, it's just nice. It just takes that time, just gives you that moment of like, you know, just I know I find it really relaxing now. I don't rush my stuff like I did first lockdown. That was when I sort of caught up initially.
First lockdown I did tons of stuff. Around this time last year during that lockdown I was just full on hammering it through, but I was also working from home, and I was still that first lockdown I was only really teaching like 3-4 hours a week over Zoom, and then the other times I set work, so I'll be sat around a lot of the time. And my desk here, if I just spin around here, I've got like an L-shaped desk, so if I spin round I've got my painting station here, where if you ever see videos of me doing production stuff, you'll see like the racks of paint and stuff to the side of me and whatever. But like even like for example, the post-Christmas lockdown we had, even though I was teaching 5-6 hours a day on Microsoft Teams, but I'm sat at my desk, so I could just in between things, I could just spin round, pick up the brush, do 2-3 minutes, get a colour down, come back round, or same with music, or just little tinkering things. I was like, off you go, kids, do this worksheet, and I'm just gonna go paint. Like, so I'll be on hand in case you need something, but try to avoid asking me for help. I wasn't like that at all, just in case anyone from work is listening. So no,
it's fine, it's all good.
But yes, we will have to at some point then throw down some dice at some point for some Necromunda.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good.
Blood Bowl is a fun game. Blood Bowl is a good game that I like, but I need to grab hold of a new team.
If I tilt my camera up above the Necromunda box.
There we go. Is that the second? Is that the brand new latest edition of Blood Bowl, or the?
No, it's not. It's the previous one.
I've not played that new one. I did have a Lizardmen team, because skinks are just my favorite thing. in the whole Games Workshop universe to skinks. Like they're not very good, but they try. So like, but I did manage to once in a game of Age of Sigmar, a skink did cause a wound on a Bloodthirster, which was quite exciting. But yeah, I had a star player called Little Skittles. He was wonderful. And then I played because I've got a local store. That's kind of like when that local store opened is when I kind of got back into it, probably about 6-7 years ago, and discovered all the games outside of Games Workshops like Kings of War and Infinity and Malifaux and stuff like that, and War Machine. But so we had a Blood Bowl store league, and I had the same team for about 3 leagues. And then there was just one game where they all just got killed, like actually killed. Because in Blood Bowl, it's very rare. It's like what, 6 or 1 on the injury roll, and they're dead. Literally 5 or 6 guys, including Little Skittles, was dead. And I was like, I'm done. It was like the last game of the season, and I was like, oh no. So I need to piece together a new team.
Yeah, definitely.
For them and get back into it. But look, Blood Bowl is amazing. We just like to, me and my housemate play it a lot as well, and we just like, when we pull off a play, just like screaming Blood Bowl and just like, so blood for the Blood Bowl god. That's what it is.
Exactly, and Nuffle is not
just stupid and fun. So
I've got a couple of teams. I got my kid into it. One of my kids into it. She chose the Dwarven team, so incredibly difficult to beat.
They're slow, but once they've got the ball, they're not letting go of it, basically, are they?
So that out early. She's only 13. That one out early. But yeah, and I've got a rat skin team and Nurgle as well.
Oh yeah, so I've got the Nurgle. I tell you what, some of the Nurgle miniatures are some of the nicest to paint.
Yeah.
Just because the amount of textures. But yeah, I've got the Nurgle team actually, half painted. So somewhere I'll have to dig them out. Maybe that could be my team for the next season. Finish them off.
Maybe.
So yeah.
Cool.
Stinking everyone out.
No worries. That's all good, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for the chat we've had. And it's always nice to see a fellow gamer on that front as well.
Yeah.
I did clock him in that mirror, and I was just like, I wonder.
Yes.
Not. And then you brought it up because you saw what I've got behind me. So yeah, that's all good. That is all good.
Good stuff.
Blood Bowl pitch actually, because that's just that. Let me just turn my camera because you'll like this. So excuse all the messing with me, but
oh, nice.
It's a made one. A friend of mine donated that to me.
Let's just hope they never changed the board size.
Well, yeah, there is that. This thing was built like years ago, so it's sustained a lot, and I'll continue to play that size if I'm using it. But we'll use it as a 7s pitch or whatever, because that's slightly smaller.
Yeah, well, it's just Blood Bowl. It's just stupid fun. It's just stupid. Just like, oh great, I've rolled a triple skulls. This is great.
This is great. This is actually but no, it's fantastic. I love playing it. It's just playing it purely for fun, and just some things.
The video game version is really good as well. It's literally just a direct translation of the game. I need to get. Well, they've done some others as well. I think Battlefleet Gothic is one they've done, which is just a direct port of the miniatures game. Yeah. And there is there more time? I think there's a more time one as well.
There is. Yep.
Not played more time, but played a lot of Frostgrave, which is like the modern day.
Yeah.
More time made by Osprey.
Avoid a couple of the Necromunda ones for now.
Yeah, I heard the latest Necromunda game. My housemate's got it. It doesn't work very well.
No, the hired gun one, which is kind of like the Doom run and gun type thing.
Is that the one that's just come out?
That's the one that's just come out. That's not bad, but there's some bugs. There's some annoying bugs.
Yeah.
Things in the one before that, the turn basis gun, Under Hive Wars, I think it's called.
Yes.
That was it. It was all hype.
So the XCOM styled one, I think they tried to.
The mobile one's not bad. The mobile is free, so you're not going to lose anything. But the mobile version's good. But yeah, no, those 2 console-based ones or PC-based ones are. There's a lot of fixes that need to be done before we go back into it. But yeah, no, I played Blood Bowl on the Xbox, so I picked that up, and so as my kid, we've been doing that during lockdown and stuff. So
cool. Yeah, I've got it on PC. I've not played it in a while though. So
cool. Well, Christian, mate, thank you very much. Like I said, I appreciate.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
That kind of stuff. Good luck with the album and everything. I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
On that front as well. And yeah, I'm going to be playing Gunfingers, sorry, at the club as well. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Because I was trying to bring in some like new stuff, just doing like, so I like to do like I say, a D&B type rock mix, and it's always been kind of not repetitive, but the same sort of songs. But I'd love to drop in.
It's a bit limited, so
yeah. You got your Pendulum, you got your Chemist, you got all that lot. But it's just sort of like it's always good to hear stuff I can drop in.
I'll tell you what's a really cool track at the minute that I'm living is the brand new Metric and Graphics track, Overdrive.
Okay.
That's just come out on Hospital. It's got that old kind of new metal vibe to it with the like hip hoppy beats and like the kind of chorusy clean guitars, and it's even got little scratches in it as well. I even messaged him like, "Look at you, Mr. Hahn, look at you go." Like, so
sorry, that was
but yeah, no, that's one I'm obsessed with at the minute. Overdrive by Metric and Graphics.
That was it.
So cool. Yeah,
I'm gonna go get that because I've got a couple of Metric tunes recently, and I'm liking what they're doing. So, but yeah, no, cool. Thank you for that. I'm gonna definitely check that one out and see if I can get that one in as well.
Good.
Cool.
I might go listen to it after we're done here.
Yeah, go for it. I'm gonna do that now. I'm gonna fire up my my thing. So, cool. Well, man, have a good rest of your day. It's nice.
And you.
It's kind of early and everything. Enjoy the rest of your school holidays and whatnot as well. And yeah, hopefully, we'll speak soon again at some point. But I'll look forward to hearing more music from you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.